All right. You ready? Yep. All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me call the meeting to order. Let's do a pledge. There's a flag behind us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, let me do a roll call. Mayor Kyriakou is here. Councilmember Grant? Here. Councilmember Wake is excused? Online. Online. You're here? Great.
Hello.
Councilmember Gordon?
Present.
And Councilmember Smith? Here. Councilmember Krasikov may or may not join, is that right, remote?
He's excused.
All right, so he's not anywhere near internet. And then Councilmember Glaude.
Here.
Okay, I see the city administrator. Is someone online from the city attorney?
Good evening, Mayor. Nick Ward-Willis from Keen to Bean.
Hey, Nick. And is our city planner online?
Natalie will be joining us around 7:15 or 7:30.
Okay.
And Brian will be here at 7:15.
All right, in person?
Correct.
Okay. So first, I'd like to entertain a motion to move two items up and do them right first, which is the workshop discussion of appointing Dustin Benedict to police officer, and then the resolution appointing Dustin Benedict. Can I get a motion and a second to do that?
Motion.
Second.
So that's Zach and Lestar. All in favor of altering the agenda in that way, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So let's deal with that. So first, we're going to discuss in workshop. I'll have the chief tell me that shortly.
Okay.
But Chief, will you come up and talk to us about Dustin and then tell us whether we're doing John Mariah or not this evening?
I appreciate your vote on moving that to the front of the agenda. So tonight I'm proposing two new hires for the three vacant positions that we have in the police department. The first is Dustin Benedict. He's here with us tonight. He lives in the town of Wallkill. He graduated from the Newburgh Free Academy and then Mount St. Mary's College and holds a bachelor's degree in information technology with a minor in cybersecurity, which are certainly skills that we could definitely use in the police department. He currently works at Fish Solutions in New Windsor as a field networking technician, and fun little piece of Beacon history. When the founder of that company was 15, he created Beacon's first website.
Wow.
Dustin has passed all of our rigorous testing, the agility, our background standards, including a polygraph and psychological assessment, and if selected, he will attend in-house training until the beginning of the academy in September. I request that we approve him for hire tonight.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk about John Mariah? Or?
Yes, although he's not here this evening, and
So correct, he's not here this evening.
will you give us the information and then explain what
Sure.
you would prefer for the council to do?
Yep. John's not here this evening because we are this close to completing his background check, but we can't swear him in tonight. We would like to vote on him pending his completion of his medical and his background check, because the next meeting is going to be too far away for us to get him in, get him his initial in-house training before the academy, and get him to the academy on the 14th of next month. So John lives in Mayapack. He graduated from Yorktown High School and then SUNY Cortland, and he has a bachelor's degree in criminology. He currently works for UPS as a delivery driver, and he's passed the testing in the written form. He's passed the agility test, the polygraph, and the psychological assessment. We have the results of his final phase we are awaiting his results of his final phase of his background check, which is the fingerprints. They actually might have come back today, but the system was down all day. So we kind of got a knife in the back on that one. And the final part of his medical exam should be available probably by the end of this week. I'm requesting that we approve him for hire pending the clean results of his fingerprints and medical assessment so that we can do that initial in-house training before he begins the academy.
So do we need a motion to move this up into workshop?
So I would suggest, I would ask the motion and the second on the prior motion to have included both individuals, both their discussion and workshop and their appointment. The motion and the second, okay with that?
Yes.
And then everyone voting for it, okay with that?
Yes.
Well, just let the record show. Okay. So having done that, any questions about either Justin or John?
So Chief,
Yes,
after these two appointments, there would only be one vacancy?
that's correct.
Are we going to have a party?
We'll have a party when there's 0 vacancies.
All right. I don't have, my question was about the timing of the potential checks for John, but I think you answered that. The latest one should be in no later than Friday of this week. Correct?
I'm sorry.
For the
latest.
tests that are still pending for John Maria?
Yeah, we should have that result by the end of this week.
Okay.
And I would just add that the resolution for John does reflect that it is contingent upon his successful completion of those 2 remaining items. So if either of those were not to be the case, then the resolution that you will ultimately be voting on in a moment would, even if it passes, would not appoint him successfully.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable taking that approach based on just the timing constraints that are in place, and I know the academy is only a couple of times a year. So as long as the resolution is, as you said, clearly states that if those things don't come back as clear, that this person would not be appointed.
All right. So let's do them one at a time. So I'd like a motion and a second to appoint Dustin Benedict to police officer.
Motion?
Second?
So that was Amber and Carolyn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Oh, all right. And then the second one is I'd like.
Can we clarify, was that a lag on the aye from Paloma, or she was voting yes, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good, sorry. Paloma, I'll ask too, so thank you for the reminder. Okay, so that was everyone voting aye for the record. And then the second one is, can I get a motion and a second to provisionally appoint John Mariah to police officer subject to the completion of 2 items?
Motion.
Second?
And so that again was Amber and Carolyn. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Paloma?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that takes care of those 2 items. I'd like to swear in Dustin if we could, and then we'll get back to our regular agenda, okay? Thank you. You ready? The end of the book. Is that you?
Yes, sir.
Oh, what do you know? Okay, so raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Dustin Benedict,
I, Dustin Benedict,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of City of Beacon Police Officer
the duties of City of Beacon Police Officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Welcome. Sign this. All right. Okay. Got any other pictures you want?
If you want some with your family, you can ask them to come up.
Welcome. Congratulations.
So let's give the family and friends a minute to clear. Thank you all. Okay. So I see the city planner and building inspector are up here. Welcome. And then the next item, now we're going back to our regular agenda, is public comment. So this is the first opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to say something, you have absolute, any topic that you wish that hopefully has something to do with the city. That's the only requirement. And except if you want to talk about three public hearings that we're having concerning the Fishkill Development District, parking laws, and Edgewater Place. If you have a comment on any of those, if you just hold until we have the hearing.
Mayor, 2 of those are adjourned,
Oh.
the first 2.
The first 2 we're going to adjourn to September 8th.
Yep. And I can give some context on why, but we'll get to those.
Okay, so you can do anything except the public hearing for Edgewater Place, which we will have this evening. And I have sign-ups. I have Bill Plymley, if you want to come on up. Thank you.
Council. My name is Bill Plymley. I live in Ward 4. I'm a city resident. I've been a city resident my whole life. I'm a 5th generation in the city. My grandfather went to the Little Red Schoolhouse, and I graduated from Beacon High School, just to give you a little background. In 2000, when me and my wife got married, we were looking for a house in Beacon. We were lucky enough to score a house, and it needed a lot of work. It was built in 1880, so the first thing we did is we gutted the basement, and we turned it into a living space. We started living there, and after we had a couple rugrats about this high, me, my wife, and my 2 rugrats lived in the apartment in the basement for a year while we rehabilitated 2 floors of our 1880s house, put an addition on, we made it livable so that we could have our family life in there. I was reading in the Current about the short-term rental policies, and then I went to the workshop meeting 2 workshops ago where you were discussing a couple items. One was the 100-day rental policy and the lottery system. And it seemed like you guys had inherited something from past city council meetings. You were trying to determine how you wanted to progress with your rules that you want to come up with. And I just want to tell you that since 2023, me and my wife have been operating an Airbnb in the space in our basement. We were able to get permits. First of all, we had to get a CO to occupy it, and working with the building department was great. We started with Timmy Dexter, we had Dave Buckley, we had Bruce Flowers, wonderful people to work with in the building department. They were very understanding. They worked with you. They told you what you needed, what you couldn't do for an Airbnb. So we got a permit 3 years ago, and just past June, we re-upped our permit. And it seems like there's a little pushback on what you guys want to do with the short-term rentals or the Airbnbs. And I just want to tell you that I love my neighbors love me, I get along with everybody in the neighborhood. I have no problems with my Airbnb. We limit it to 2 people. Actually, my wife's the super host. She goes out of her way to make sure that everybody's comfortable there, and we have no problems there. And the one thing I wanted to touch on was that you hired a company, a third-party company that came in to look at the illegal Airbnbs. I agree totally that if you're not registered, you should be registered. I think everybody that has one agrees that if we go by the rules, everybody has to go by the rules. So I look forward to the third-party company trying to
15
enforce
seconds.
those rules. Excuse me?
15 seconds.
Really? So I'm just here to tell you that we go by the rules, and I don't want to be taken down because I go by the rules. So I think you should force the ones that you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bill, thank you so much for your community service for all the years you've been doing it. So, yeah. John Blesso.
Good evening, John Blessa, Ward 2. I would like to piggyback on a lot of what Bill said. This is a complicated subject, and I want to thank this council and the building department for your work in trying to figure this out. It feels like there's a lot of topics that are pretty free-ranging on this, and I'd like to suggest that that we begin with what we're all in agreement about. I believe that this council and the building department and all of these permit holders, we've all followed the rules. And I think that we're all in agreement that we should, that there should be meaningful enforcement on the short-term rentals in this city, a majority of which are not permitted. You're going to need resources to do that. There was a number of $25 a day fine. This does not mean anything. That number needs to be several $100s, and that would provide real resources to organize and to start more systemically looking at these. They're very easy to identify. Again, I thank you for your work, and I hope that that might be a good place for us to begin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I don't have anyone else on the list signed up, but if anyone in the physical public wants to make a comment, come right on up.
Teresa Kraft, concerned resident. I'm glad that they came forward. There are a lot of Airbnbs that are not following the laws and the rules on that topic, and I'm glad that you've adjourned the 2 public hearings, one regarding the hotels. I'd like to keep all of the hotels towards Fishkill, where they have all of those industrial sites, and I would not ever want to see a hotel down by the Madam Brett Park. And another thing, I think that all these projects that come forward, one of the give-backs to the city should not be little enclosed parks or places people can visit on these developments, like the one down at the Fishkill Creek. I'm pretty sure that the people that will spend a lot of money don't want to have people from the streets just coming in and sitting at their little park that's open to everybody. I think there should be other kind of give-backs that these developers do, and maybe scaling back and start talking about a building moratorium again. We were all talking about that many years ago, and for some reason, everything's just happening without hearing what the public has to say. I'd like to see a real architectural review board that's not attached to the planning board, and I could stop right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the physical public want to make a comment this evening? Okay. Anyone online, Ben?
We currently have one hand raised on Zoom. Before I give them the permission to speak, I will just give a spiel for the rest who are tuning in. If you're on Zoom this evening, you'd like to make a public comment, you will need to use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining us through the YouTube stream, you'll need to navigate to the city website. From there, you can go to the community calendar and find the link for tonight's meeting and navigate to Zoom at that point. First, we have Pam Weatherby on Zoom. Pam, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
How do you spell Weatherby? Oh, okay.
Spell it right.
Common spelling.
Pam Weatherby, Mead Avenue, resident there, 38 years, 40 years in Beacon. And I know on the workshop today, you have on the agenda the Fishkill Avenue rezoning discussion. And I just want to let the city council know, for those who hadn't been on the council, the neighbors and I had signed a petition back and gave it to the city council back in October 2023. Had 73 signatures, and saying do not allow the zoning to change from the R15 to commercial on Mead Avenue, even if those right now have a variance to allow commercial parking there. We strongly want to keep the character of our neighborhood. Mead Avenue is a one-way street. Anybody who wants to know more, I would love to give you a tour. Also, I do have concern of, I'm hoping that you're going to look at what the schedule of dimensions is now for the general business compared to what is suggested for the Fishkill Ave. because it is increasing the height to 48 feet from 35 feet. I strongly recommend that you don't do that without getting additional affordable housing units for those extra, for that extra story. Also, if you really look at the properties that are behind Mead Avenue on Fishkill, I don't think they have 100 feet depth. And I noticed on the Fishkill Avenue, on the schedule of dimensions, it doesn't even have a depth minimum, which really concerns me, because I can't imagine 4 stories, even 3 stories behind us when there's not even 100 feet between our Mead Avenue and Fishkill Avenue. I'm going to try to follow up with an email. I am kind of away right now and not near a computer or a printer, but I just wanted to let my voice be heard. And I also wanted to say congratulations on only 1 vacancy in the police department. Yay, Amber. The City of Beacon definitely needs to have a party. Also, for the bike discussion for the plan that was discussed last meeting, I strongly recommend that the pedestrian study be part of that.
15 seconds.
And to incorporate that sidewalk inventory, because sidewalk inventory is not a pedestrian study. And thank you for all that you do. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Pam.
you
Good
for
to hear
your
from you.
service, Pam. Anyone else online or in person?
Yes, we do have one more speaker on Zoom, and that is McCall. McCall, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, Council. Michal Mark, Mead Avenue. I just wanted to echo Pam's comments about the workshop item regarding the proposed Fishkill Avenue district. I also want to say that it's very confusing to have multiple proposed zoning areas that have the word Fishkill in them. I don't know how the public is supposed to keep track of that, so I strongly suggest a different naming convention that doesn't repeat Fishkill everywhere. I share her concerns about the height going up to 35, from 35 to 48, while noting that we do have an active project that was approved with the existing height limit of 35 that is currently requesting a variance to go to 48, and I truly hope that there isn't a connection between this zoning and that project. I also wanted to thank you for re-engaging with the Airbnb and short-term rentals discussion. I really appreciated hearing from the hosts that are following our current laws, and it's great to have them. I also think that it is well beyond time to deal with some of the offenders, including one listing that charges $500 a night, was featured in a magazine. The owners clearly do not live in Beacon. They were denied a short-term rental license in 2023. The city is well aware of them, our lawyers are well aware of them. And I have a really hard time understanding, and hope to hear today from our building department, why we can't enforce this law. Finally, thank you for your service, and congratulations to the new police officer or police person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No further speakers on Zoom.
Okay. So let's go to public hearings. Do we need to adjourn 2 of them? Do we
We
need a
do, Mayor.
motion?
We should be able to
Yep.
vote to adjourn those 2 public hearings to the specific date of September 8th.
All right. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing regarding the Fishkill Development District to September 8th?
Motion.
Second.
So
Who's Lestar?
Lestar and Amber?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing on parking changes.
Motion.
Second.
So that's Carolyn and Amber. Any discussion? All in favor for postponing to September 8th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Paloma on both of those.
Aye to adjourning both public hearings.
Great, thank you so much. Remind me if I forget. Okay.
May I give one sentence of context for the adjournment of either of them?
Just one.
Yeah.
One sentence? All right. All right.
But a
My
long
words
one.
carefully. A run-on sentence. No, I don't need much. For the first, regarding the Fishkill Development District and hotels, we're awaiting feedback from the county and city planning board. The city planning board did meet and discuss, but I don't have the written final memo on that. And then for the second, concerning the parking local laws on Tyranda and West Main, we did, as per council's request, flyer the impacted businesses on West Main Street, of the hardware store and all the other adjacent businesses on Friday. We wanted to give them a little bit more heads-up notice prior to the hearing so that they can gather their thoughts, consider if they have any concerns, and I gave them an option of writing with them. I could circulate that to you, or they can appear and speak on it at the hearing on the 8th.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's open I will open the public hearing on the amended special permit for Edgewater Place. I would expect, Nick, will you tell me what that is about so the public is aware and we can open the hearing?
I will, Mayor. I'll give a brief introduction. The supporting materials are very good between the applicant's cover letter, our firm's memo, as well as the memos from the city planner. So there's a lot of information in the supporting documents. The application tonight concerns a multifamily development previously approved in 2018 by the City Council by the issuance of a special permit for the Edgewater project located at Edgewater Place. It's a number of buildings that was approved for a total of 246 dwelling units containing 350 bedrooms. The amendment before you tonight is for a project that has received its special use permit, again, 8 years ago, as well as planning board approval. And they've come back to the planning board and the city council for a minor amendment to their special permit. Their request is all zoning compliant, no variances are required, no waivers are required. They're requesting for the addition of 2 dwelling units from up to 248. And we're going from 350 bedrooms to 359 bedrooms. These changes are all internal to the site, to the approved buildings. They are not doing any new construction or enlargement of the previously approved buildings, and this comes with a positive recommendation from the planning board that considered it at one of its recent meetings. That's a quick overview.
Okay.
And Mayor, we do have the applicant's team here who they wanted to give a brief introduction to this on their end as well.
By all means.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Taylor Palmer, with the law firm of Cuddy & Fader. On behalf of the applicant, Rodney Weber, who's joining us this evening, on behalf of Scenic Beacon Developments. I'm also joined by Mike Bodendorf of Hudson Land Design, who's the project engineer. As you mentioned, the city attorney mentioned, I should say, we are here for our public hearing in connection with the special permit amendment that's before you. Following our work session a few weeks ago, for the benefit of the public and the board, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just a quick procedural history. I think Nick touched on some of the major points about this number of units and the scale of the project. By way of background procedurally, to jump ahead from 2018, you'll also recall that the application was recently before the council in 2023, where the city council actually amended the code to enable the project to do what's called an internal lot subdivision, which was for financing purposes. So it has been back before the council. That was unrelated, of course, to the special permit. At that time, the city council did approve that zoning change, and then the applicant proceeded back before the planning board to do a formal subdivision and record it. We're currently in what we call phase 2 of the Edgewater project, which is underway. So you've all seen a number of the buildings that are constructed at the site. The phase 2 is well under construction, and we have specifically 4 remaining buildings, buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4. Of course, the order, numbering of the buildings could have been the opposite, but here we are. The amended project that's before you tonight, as the city attorney mentioned, is 248 total dwelling units, where there's a maximum of 252 that are permitted under the code. So tonight we're proposing to move from 246 units to 248, where the maximum permitted for this site is 252. Specific to the special permit that's before the council, we are returning to amend our special permit. That's based on a resolution condition in the planning board's approval that said if there was a change to the bedroom number, bedroom count number, or the number of units, we return to you all for this amendment. So specifically as it relates to this request, it's important to note that Section 223-4110M provides that the 2 units that we're actually requesting to construct are what we call density bonus units. This was specifically provided because the applicant has constructed 25 below market rate units within the development site itself. So the city code itself incentivizes the developer to produce these units, and the units that we're requesting, 2 of them, are 2 of the 10 permitted density bonus units. So your city code specifically incentivizes a developer to produce those units so they can have additional units on top of what's permitted by the code. So that while we're not going for the full 10 that are permitted, these 2 units are based on that code criteria. With that, we do have some additional details, as the city attorney mentioned. We provided a breakdown of the total unit counts and the bedroom counts. We'll certainly turn it over to the public to go through any questions they might have, or if the council has any questions, but we do have a detailed breakdown of what below market rate units we have, the studios, based on a council member's question at the work session, and we're pleased to address any other comments the board or public may have.
Okay, and with that, I'll open the public hearing. Someone wants to make comments on this, come on up.
Clark Edmond, 2 Wilson Street. The change is not really material, right? A couple of units. But I think what is extremely material is it's really like a fact-finding journey. And if you were to look back the 20 years that this project has been live and the benchmarks of approvals and property taxation, you would see values going up and taxation laying stagnant. And this is a result of well-practiced New York law as it relates to these kind of ventures, where shifts in ownership, rather than tax the new real value of the complex, the owners are protected by transfer to a different owner. And then that owner doesn't have to build on one hand, but he has the right to build on the other, unless there's specific sanctions written into the contracts, which I don't believe occurred.
So would this be comments towards supporting?
So this is, Lee, a continuum of a certain kind of behavior. And I find it objectionable, because if you were to look at the millions of dollars lost because of these maneuvers, that the council should be advising its planning board and itself should be on the outlook for that kind of abusive kind of practice.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else want to comment on this particular public hearing? Anyone online?
We do have one hand raised online, and that is McCall. McCall, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Similarly to Mr. Gebman, I don't have an objection to this particular request, but I do want to raise the fact that Dutchess County conducts a housing survey, and many of the large developers that we have in town who we work closely and well with, as Mr. Palmer said, in 2023, the code was amended to assist them with their financing needs. I think it would be a great thing if this developer and other large developers in town started to cooperate with the Dutchess County Housing Survey that is conducted and provided information that could help our county and our city plan better. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no one else, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second. So Amber and Zach, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye to closing the public hearing.
Thank you. All right, so that closes the public hearing. Now we get to reports. Where do we want to start? Carolyn, you want to start up?
Sure, I don't have that much today. Thank you everyone for coming out today. I'm also excited to be almost at capacity with our police department. Just since the last meeting, I had office hours, so I want to thank the people who came out and some of the people who used my booking link. You can still find that in my signature and on the city page. If you would like to meet, I'm always happy to try to find a time. Ben and I had an opportunity to do a walking tour of Ward 4, which was great. We looked at some of the things that constituents had asked about and some hot spots that are much better viewed on foot. So we have a better idea of like the big picture safety items in the ward. Looking forward to the future, the Traffic Safety Committee meeting is on Thursday, August 27th at 9 a.m. In the downstairs area. If you have an item, a traffic safety item, please send it to us to try to get it on the agenda in time. And the greatest thing ever is happening next weekend, and that's the Dutchess County Fair. So if you're free from August 25th to 30th, you'll probably find me there whenever I can get off work. And if anyone from Beacon is showing something or has like art or like an animal or something, let me know and I will come find you and I will promote it for you because I love the fair. And that is all I have for today.
I wasn't planning to talk about the fair, but I also love the fair. And I think it was last summer I took some family members from Germany there because I said they had to try the milkshakes, and they're back again this year and said we had to go back and get milkshakes. So I will also be there with the Germans getting milkshakes. I was just going to mention, summer is winding down, which I hate to say, but I hope everybody enjoys these last couple of weeks. And the only reason I mention that is that as school gets started again, which it does kind of before our next reports, just keep an extra eye out for all the students who are walking and biking and traversing their way to maybe new schools and on new routes, and just use some caution and have some patience and grace as everybody gets settled back into their routines. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Cool. So coming up this week, I'm going to be hosting office hours from 10 to 12 at Bank Square on Saturday. Beyond that, would like to remind everybody that the Beacon Back to School Block Party at South Avenue Park is August 22nd from 12 to 3. I've already gotten my school supplies to donate, and I hope everybody else will join as well. It's always a great event, and hoping for good weather this year. That's all I got.
All right. Well, I have a few. I am Beacon's annual Back to School Block Party is this Saturday at the South Avenue Park from 12 to 3, as us Beacon natives like to call it, Loopers. They will be giving out free school supplies to all the kids, so please come out. It's an amazing event. Thank you to Ruben Simmons and all of I Am Beacon for always hosting that every year. I was also informed by several residents in Ward 2 that there is a dispensary being built at Loopers Plaza. This is very disheartening that this is now being built in our lower income neighborhood with our minorities, so I would like further discussion on that and when this was approved. I am also very concerned with the overdevelopment in Beacon. One of our own police officers is unable to afford to live here and is currently living with their parents here in Ward 1, so I think we need to stop bending over backwards for our developers and really start thinking about our community and affordable housing. I am against this hotel rezoning and for STRs, as we need to work for our community and not against them. This is an opportunity that many of our residents have been utilizing to make extra income, to stay in their homes and not be pushed out, and I don't feel like it's something that should be replaced by allowing hotels to be built in Fishkill Avenue. As always, I'm available on your time, call, text, email, and we'll set something up.
Thank you all. Paloma?
Thank you all. I'll just say that my next open office hours are on Monday, September 7th, the day before our next council meeting from 4 to 6 p.m. at Memorial Park. I'll be at the pavilion by the bathroom. But as always, I am also more than happy to connect on your time. Between now and then or whenever, please just reach out to me at pwake@beaconny.gov. Thanks.
Thank you all. I too can be very short. I volunteer at the Visitor Center on weekends, and it's actually been kind of fun. I did the Certified Tourism Ambassador training, and I had to read 200 pages of materials on Dutchess County and of Beacon, and then pass a test on it. But I go there, I usually go 2 to 5. This Saturday, I went 11 to 2, because I was spelling someone. There were 50-plus people who came in. A lot of them were using the bathroom. You should all tell people that there's a bathroom in that visitor center. When it's open, it's available to everyone. I'm happy to do it. I like the space enough. I'm thinking of making it my office. I'm wondering where we're going to put the deputy city administrator, so I may get pushed out, but at least I have a potential place to go. And then the only thing other than that is we had the Corn Festival. I think we had a good turnout, although toward the end it was close to some rain. And then today I had the privilege of attending the change of command at West Point. And the superintendent, Steve and Betsy Gillen, both of whom are West Point grads from 1990, handed over the reins to James Bartholomews, who's a 95 grad. And it was not only a privilege, but it was just heartening to see people who are committed to service and who take their oath to defend the Constitution seriously against all, both foreign and domestic. So I was pleased to do that. Saw our congressman there. As you know, our congressman, Pat Ryan, is a graduate of West Point, and he takes his public service to an amazing degree, not only having served his country in the military, but serving it now as our congressman. That's all I got. Let me see what the city administrator wants to add.
I'll try and keep it brief also. Just a couple of things for everyone. Firstly, the Main Street clocks should be up and running, hopefully keeping regular time, and maybe useful to people who are walking by. Once more, our vendor was out last week getting those corrected. Just a heads up for the council and the public, I will be beginning internal budget meetings with our department heads and our finance director in the next couple of weeks, which means that'll come to you all a few weeks later beyond that, so October. But it's right on the horizon. I can't believe, like Amber said, summer is coming to an end, and we're already looking to our September and October meetings. I wanted to thank Carolyn for having a great agenda for our tour through her ward last week. It was very well plotted out and very efficient, so thank you. And got to see a lot of things in the ward that seeing in person does help give context for. Lastly, I want to thank our tree committee for working closely with Mark Price, our recreation director, to put together a really strong application for an urban forestry tree inventory grant that was submitted last week. This would be updating maps and information on the city's public space trees and in right-of-way areas, and would include public outreach, would include some workshop type of things, and would ultimately parlay into further grant opportunities for forestry, urban forestry. So great opportunity for the city, and they put a lot of work into that, and so thank you to all of them for their time. Lastly, I wanted just to quickly address our council member Gordon's remark about the cannabis dispensary. While I don't have any information about that particular location that you're referring to, generally the process is that's regulated by the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. They have a review process. They are the ones who administer the regulations for that. So it wouldn't have been something that I believe the city would have been directly approving of. And that's all I have for my report.
And is that something we can object on?
Well, yeah, the process involving New York State allows the opportunity for input.
For local objection, yes.
So if there is an application, it will come to us and we will have the opportunity to provide input. Is that right?
So generally our position is we haven't taken stances on them one way or another in terms of other ones that have opened in Beacon, whether we're endorsing or condoning or objecting to them. I can find out whether or not we didn't take a stance on this particular one and let you know.
Please do.
And then from that point, I would just say before we really get into our heavy workshop session I wanted to ask the council, do you expect to have questions for the Edgewater team? Or I think our goal with that workshop item later on with Nick was just to figure out the council's next steps. So if you're not expecting to have questions for them, then I would say that they're welcome to leave or say it's up to you. But I didn't want to hold you guys around if we're going to have questions, unless we're going to have questions rather.
I don't.
No further questions?
No questions?
None.
Okay, so I think you're welcome to stay and tune in for the rest of it, but it might be a little while before we get to that agenda item.
I will make one comment in connection to that, not specific to the property, but rather I note that special use permits have been shifted to the planning board over the years, and I'm seeing two of them that I wouldn't mind seeing them also shifted to the planning board. The one is subdivisions, which this particular property requested a subdivision which had to come to us, and the other one is minor changes in unit counts and bedroom counts. Again, I'm not sure why, we're the body that would, review that. So, but that's for another day. As long as I got the planner and the attorney and the building inspector here, I thought I'd offer that comment. All right? So shall we go to short-term rentals? And if so, let me introduce Brian Murphy, our building inspector. And do you want to open, or do you want the attorney to say anything, or do you want to open?
I think Nick's going to start us off.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second. Sure, Nick, go ahead.
Thank you. I thought it'd be helpful just to reorient ourselves, because we last discussed this at the council's July 20th meeting, and in your agenda materials is a copy of our memorandum, which was a decision tree, as well as Dutchess County's 2025 tracker of short-term rental regulations throughout the county, and then some key provisions of the zoning code. So on July 20th, we reviewed the city code regarding short-term rentals with the council, and there were a couple of questions that we had asked the council, such as should STRs be entirely banned in the city? Council had a robust discussion on this and all the questions, and with this one, there was a recognition of sort of doing a balance between the impacts on housing versus the benefit to your residents who rely upon some income from the short-term rentals, as well as the fact that it supports your tourist economy. And so the discussion, as I recall, was that short-term rentals are recognized as bringing value to the city. It's just a matter of regulating them and tracking and permitting them. So the first answer was, no, they should not be banned. They should be allowed. Second question, where should they be permitted? It was determined to keep them in all zoning districts. The third question was, should the number of STRs be limited? And there was council interest in further examining that. We didn't reach any conclusions because you want to get some information from the building department as to the numbers, but there was interest in revisiting that as we consider, should we be making modifications to the short-term rental regulations? The fourth question was, should the owner-occupied requirements be eliminated? And if you notice from the tracking legislation with respect to Dutchess County, that seems to be one where people are consistent that if you don't want to adversely impact housing, you should require that it be owner-occupied. And that was something that the council was, I believe, was interested in continuing. The next one was whether the 100 rental days per year limitation is effective. And that's a city code requirements that say you can state you can only use your short-term rental for a maximum of 100 days. I think you may hear from Brian on this, so I apologize for spoiling it for him. But that's a difficult thing to keep track of whether someone is rented out for 100 days, 99 days, or 101 days. And not so sure it necessarily has an impact or is preventing anything that is adverse. The sixth question was whether to increase the penalty for violations. That was a unanimous yes. And we do have a draft law that we'll be bringing to the council in September that would significantly increase those fines. And then the last question was whether you wish to amend the law to add some enforcement provisions against the short-term rental marketplaces such as VRBO and Airbnb, so that if they list unpermitted short-term rentals, that you would have the ability to enforce against them and issue violations, because they're obviously then just fostering these unpermitted rental facilities to be advertising when they know they should be getting a permit. So the council was in agreement with that. So when we come back to amending the law, there are a couple of little tweaks we would be making to it. After that discussion on July 20th, there was an interest from the council to hear from the building department as to how they're processing and working with the short-term rental laws, their experience with it. And our office has had a number of interactions with Brian over the last year as he's phased in his evaluation and enforcement of the short-term rental law. So I may jump in and out of the discussion, but at this point, it's a good transition to turn it over to Brian.
Good. Thank you, Council, Mayor. Brian Murphy, City Building Inspector, if you don't know who I am. Been with City of Beacon about a year and a half. But the building department consists of a 5-member team, myself, 2 deputy building inspectors, and 2 secretaries. So that's what we have to work with. I was asked to come to discuss the STRs tonight, the process that we're going through. So, like the attorney said, it's a phased process, is what we were doing. Phase 1, when I got here, we had to learn the STR rules, regulations, and things along those lines. We've done that. We went on to phase 2 to start working with the vendor that the city contracts with, Granicus, and specifically their platform called Host Compliance. I wish that process was quicker and easier, but it was a lengthy process to learn and go through with them. Took a while. We had to get the forms changed. It wasn't as easy as just getting the previous inspector's name off of the violations and mine added on. Host Compliance had turnover, this, that. But anyway, so we have that all taken care of. We went on to phase 3, where we had Host Compliance start issuing violation notices to property owners that they found to be not in compliance with the STRs. Subsequent, we went on to start issuing the second notices of violations. Those second ones had gone out in March of this year, and now we are actually into the enforcement end of the phase 4, the enforcement end. We will have the first STR in city court on September 14th of this year to for not being in compliance. So we did a phased approach. We are starting to ramp up the enforcement. Like I said, we have the first one in court September 14th, and we are working with others. The notices did get a decent amount of applications into our office. We have 8 pending inspections to issue STR permits going forwards, and that's really the approach and the process that we are taking at this time. It seems to have been working. The violation notices seem to have gotten the attention of some, not all by any means, but it has gotten a good amount of applications into our office. So that was the approach that we took to do. So like I said, started with learning the code, and then now we're on to enforcement, working with the city attorney to see what we can do. Unfortunately, the fine is very low. It could almost be considered a cost of doing business.
Okay.
So before I turn it over to council, and then I'll leave it, I'll try and stay out of this as much as possible. I just wanted to thank Brian. Nick and Brian and Christian and I have met a number of times in this past month or two. We've really impressed upon Brian the council's priority of reining these in to the extent that there are ones that are not in compliance and willfully not in compliance. And I would just acknowledge that Brian's been very receptive to that feedback that we've been passing along to him and his department. And I would just note that, it's a time-intensive process to go through and do these. It requires, staff resources, but it's also just notices, double checking that they're actually in violation. The Granicus platform is a tool, but it's not infallible. There's plenty of instances that Brian has brought to Nick and my attention of there's some uncertainty about whether it's really not in compliance for a variety of factors that he could elaborate on more than I can. But I just wanted to thank him for his time. He's working with Christian closely to issue violation notices, bring these first group into court, and still balancing all the other life safety daily tasks that him and his department are doing, such as fire inspections and among many other important functions that they have. So just wanted to provide that context. Thanks, Brian, for being here. Turn it over to all of you. His time and our time is yours.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any data you can provide, because the reason that we're having this discussion is kind of an assumption of a problem based on anecdotal feedback. but not numbers-driven feedback. So I'm curious about how many permits we have issued, even if that also includes the pending, and then how many violations.
Right now, we have 44 permits that are issued. We have 18 that we know of that are not compliant right this second. 8 of those are ones that are scheduled to be re-inspected to get compliance. The other 10, we're still working with trying to get in touch with them, or a second violation or an appearance ticket if need be to court.
Okay, thank you for that. And the follow-up that I would ask in terms of, again, we've made kind of a lot of assumptions. So one of the assumptions I think we're operating under is that it's difficult to enforce either the owner-occupied issue and/or the number of days. Can you just tell us a little bit about like where you're having challenges with enforcement, where you're running into issues like Ben mentioned, where it's unclear? I think that would help us kind of figure out what the potential problem areas are.
The owner occupied for us, I don't believe is an issue.
Okay.
Where I think it might have become an issue was if we would receive a complaint and a resident would state, well, I don't think this is owner occupied. But meanwhile, we have the documentation that says it is, and we can only go by what documents are submitted to us.
Right.
So that's a little tricky part. I would like to, and we have the ability to amend the application and add maybe a few more, things in there. And I honestly don't know right off the top of my head what, but one of them would maybe be like a photo identification or something like that. There isn't. The only 2 requirements are a STAR exemption and a utility bill.
Okay.
And not that it's a deterrent to do it, but the STAR exemption is a tricky one because some people don't qualify for it. So they apply. Unfortunately, we're like, well, if you don't have it, it's because it does say shall. Then we can't, we deny it, and then you'll see it pop up. Okay. So that's one that I would like to, instead of the word shall, I would just, change it to may, and then add a couple other documents in there that we deem, relevant to determining if it is owner occupied. That part I don't think is very hard to do. It might be it's harder to explain to the neighbor, sorry, we have the documentation. I get what you're saying, you live next to it, you're in the real world, and maybe, yes, you didn't see this gentleman for 8 months, or whoever, the owner, but, in the meantime, his driver's license is this and that, all say that he resides there.
Okay.
So that's maybe the misconception there with the owner occupied. For us, it's relatively easy. It's paperwork.
That's very helpful. Thank
Yes.
you.
I apologize. I forgot your second question.
If the number of days was also a problem, or if there's just anything else that you're having a problem with that you want to share with us that can help make this process better.
Okay. Yeah. So the number of days, the way that Granicus documented, they only documented by a stay, not a day. So we have no idea if a documented stay is a day, or is it a week? Is it the 30 days that takes it outside of the STR? And our law leaves it to us having to get an affidavit from the owner saying that you didn't rent it for over 100 days.
Okay.
So that, I don't know if, and we haven't had, and we will have more communication with Granicus and see if that's something that, first, do they have that information? And if they do, can we have it? I don't know if they do or not, but we will find out. We've had a lot more open communication with them, and it seems to be getting better the further, as we go along, so.
Brian, just thank you for this. Just catching people up who might be tuning in for the first time, can you talk a little bit about the permitting process and like maybe a timeline of how long it would, like what is the step step-by-step process and how long it might take from somebody to say, I want to submit documentation to when they might get approval?
Okay, yeah, so, the short-term rental application is online, and it's called short-term rental permit. It's, you go to the building department, click on the forms, and it's right down there. Right now, we are about 15 business days for processing applications at this time. This is our really busy time of the year. We try to keep it to 10 business days where you would submit the application, we would review all your documentation, and then contact you to schedule an inspection. Is the process that we do to do it. A renewal would be the same, you submit your permit application, it's basically the same thing, it's just less of a fee.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now, we try to say, so we don't set the expectation, unfortunately, too high, like 15 business days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some examples of things that cause somebody to not become permitted?
For a denial would be, we do see people just submit literally the application, or it would be notarized to the clerk, incomplete documents, I would say, is really the reason that it would be denied.
Okay.
Or, although I haven't seen one yet, fail at inspection. That would be the biggest reason, honestly, but it's more incomplete documentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Then we email, and sometimes that drags on a little bit. I know I've received a few emails from residents that, they either didn't see the email or inadvertently we didn't send it. It's not, unfortunately, a perfect system.
Brian, if you could you walk us through the compliance process end to end? So this vendor, what are they producing for us? How often are they checking things? When somebody's found to be non-compliant, what are the steps we take?
So Granicus, from what I believe they do, they monitor all host websites, Airbnb, Vrbo, would they say HomeAway, and I'm not sure of the other ones. That's the three that are listed. Sure. And when there's a running list that we keep and that they keep. Okay. And depending, right now it's about every 2 weeks that we communicate with them. If they find one, they would let us know, and we would say either send a letter, or we have the permit, and it's okay. Where it gets weird, for some reason, why they are not, we have ones that are on host compliance that were issued and approved in May that they still have marked non-compliant, so which is tricky, but we're trying to work. We have a communication with the gentleman, Daniel, right now that seems to be staying. He's been consistent for like the last 5 months. Prior to that, we really weren't getting much at all from them. It was tough.
Yeah, do you mind clarifying that? So when somebody is found to be non-compliant, it sounds like they send the communication to the operator, right?
They do.
And we don't do that?
Correct. They have in their system our letter, our violation notice, where they will send it for us, correct? Okay. We just click send letter, and they will send we click send first violation, and then if they report it back again, we could click send second violation.
I see. So we send them letters of violation, then what are the next steps to escalate if they don't respond to those letters?
It would be an appearance ticket to court.
Okay.
If we have contact information, sometimes we will try to reach out to them, but we don't have the contact, for everybody here, But if you had pulled the permit, or if you would answer your phone or an email, we do try to do it. That's basically
right.
the process.
So if we were to try to dedicate more resources to enforcement, let's say we increase the fines and we use that to increase enforcement, we have a person who's able to work a certain number of hours a week, like what would that person actually be doing from a compliance perspective? Like what would we use that person for to improve our compliance?
So we would use that person to do the inspections. We'd be able to get them done quicker. We'd be able to get the permits turned around quicker. Complaints, we would be able to get them, to follow up on complaints, although we haven't really received that many on complaints. They would be able to, you know, go by the property. I mean, that's really about what they would be able to do with that for more staff, per se.
I see. So it wouldn't help with actually the vendor or anything. It literally would just be sending somebody to a site to respond to complaints, or it would just be speeding the approvals, which isn't necessarily a compliance issue. It's just getting
It's
people
not a
online.
compliance issue,
Okay.
correct? Yeah, I don't know if putting another person at it would really do much to it.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would encourage us to look into the vendor and see what options they have for compliance and whether we can shore anything up there, but it sounds like having more resources isn't necessarily helpful in this regard.
I mean, if we're on that topic, maybe not for that, but for a million other things,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
You know, I
I'm
mean,
sure Ben will
we
be
can certainly
scheduling
get
time
him to
with
go to
you.
fire inspection. I mean, I'm never going to say no. But in that, in this specific instance, I don't think that it would absolutely help me. But it's not something that I think would make, say, STR non-compliance go away. You know, it's one, we're not limited to the amount of appearance tickets, but it's not, I don't believe we could inundate the court with, say, like 20 or 30 of them at a time. It's not something, I don't think, and not that there's that many anyway, it's not.
No, I mean, we
You
know
know.
nobody has gone before the court so far, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in September. I mean, I do think for sure we should look at the penalties. That perhaps is the greatest incentive for people to comply.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure that there's a lot of juice to squeeze here in the existing law based on this conversation, other than perhaps penalties. The 100-day thing, if that's,
I would like to discuss the 100-day thing, but I agree
Yeah.
with Natalie's point.
Yeah. Just one thing. How many city employees work in your physical office?
Myself and five.
No, in the physical office that you occupy.
Oh.
Not your department, the physical office that you occupy.
3?
There's 3 of you, right?
Yeah.
And if I've got it
That's a trick
right,
question.
your department is 5 people in a space about the size of the pews on this side.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I just want to be clear how tight for space we are.
Yeah,
Right?
yes.
So, I apologize for that, but that's all we got. So, right?
No, that's okay. There's a table we could move and put a computer on it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I had one other one, which is, do you have any interaction, not Granicus, but with Airbnb itself?
The little bit of communication we had is we had provided them what they wanted to call a template for their front page for regulations in Beacon. And that was the only communications we had with them.
All right, we should talk afterwards. I contacted Investor Relations. Airbnb is a publicly traded company, and I asked them specifically about their commitment to compliance. They claimed that they had spoken to you, et cetera, but I don't think they have. I'd be interested in what you would think. Would it be possible for us to send Airbnb, here is the list of those that are in compliance with our local statute?
Absolutely, we could do it tomorrow.
So I would be interested to see if I could pressure Airbnb to actually monitor their listings if they're in Beacon, to actually be compliant with those, with that whatever list you provided them. I think they claim to be very interested and they have a group doing compliance, but that struck me as one of the ways that might help.
well, I think there's more hosting platforms than Airbnb.
I understand.
I think we would
Right.
want
So,
to. But
actually-
I think, Nick, when we had our initial discussion, there was, the last question was about whether we amend the law to require the marketplaces to include only permitted short-term rentals, which
Correct.
seems like a no-brainer, but.
I do have
Yeah,
one
I
concern
agree.
about that. So one thing with that question that was mentioned on the memo was that this is specifically large municipalities that generally do that. My concern would be for some of these apps, if this is a smaller municipality, they may just say we're pulling out of Beacon rather than attempt to put operational resources toward compliance. Now, we can ask them to do it, and we should pressure them to do it, but that is a risk that I would see.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I wouldn't step away from that just because it's a potential risk. I think it's worth pursuing, especially if we can kind of follow on the coattails of bigger municipalities. That might be, we could be a little bit of a small mosquito to their, bigger pest. But I think it would be good to at least ask.
I agree. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we should push for it. I just think we should be mindful of what the response is, if the goal is to have still some short-term rentals in Beacon.
I would like just to ask, Brian, what do you feel you and your team need to ensure that these are owner-occupied STRs? Because obviously licenses with these permits are not working, or a piece of mail, because I can live in Miami and send my mail to Beacon. So what is it that you feel you may need for us to put into law to ensure that people are actually living in these homes and renting them out? Because for me, people coming here, buying our homes and flipping them, living in Miami and renting our homes out here on the weekend, this is still our community and where we raise our children. So I don't want this to turn into a completely tourist site on the weekend where people are just renting and coming to stay and have a good time. So what do we do to help you to ensure that these are owner-occupied STRs?
May I get back to you on that? Because I honestly, I don't know.
So Brian,
I don't know exactly. I would ask Nick. I would go to legal.
You mind if I jump in? Actually, Councilmember Krasikov had taken an opportunity to speak to someone who works for the city of Hudson, and they've had some degree of success. I won't go through all of Councilmember Krasikov's notes from that interaction, but one of the things that jumped out to me that they reported of having some success with was requiring, in addition to their driver's license, or other supporting documents such as voter registration, utility bill, they also require an executed and notarized affirmation form, which attests to residency status and compliance with the fire code. And Nick can chime in if he thinks that that's effective, but they said that they felt that people are pretty hesitant to basically lie on a document like that.
Ben, I think that's another tool in our toolbox that we can use. I also like the idea of sort of reaching out to Airbnb and the other hosting platforms and trying to make them our partners in allowing legal Airbnbs and short-term rentals in the city and getting their cooperation.
We already have that. The certification form,
We do, okay.
5th page of our application.
Got it, okay.
Already has
Is it requires to be notarized as well?
Correct, it
Okay.
does, and be
So-
filed with the clerk.
So they don't care there, so maybe we do need to up our bounty on what they are being charged. I say 100% of whatever they're charging that night, not $50 or $25. But whatever they are found to be charging per night, that's what we should be taking them to court for when they're caught to be having illegal STRs.
And so, agree, and we have a local law, we'll bring it to you in September, that increases the penalties. The difficulty is, and I shouldn't say the difficulty, the fact is that the judge in the court establishes what those fees are, what those fines are. And we've had situations where we've recommended higher fees and the court has used its discretion and not done so. So ultimately, we will ask for hefty fines when warranted, but also it is up to the court to issue those penalties.
I want to clarify a point, Nick, because I actually had a conversation with a judge about this. And what they said to me was that, yes, of course, there is discretion in the fines, but if there is a minimum fine, if the minimum fine is, say, $500, they can't just arbitrarily say, well, I'm going to use my discretion to make it $5. They can't go lower than the minimum, is my understanding from this judge.
We've had discussions to the opposite because the court has the ability to exercise discretion taking into account mitigating factors. And so courts have taken a position that they have the inherent authority to use that discretion and go beyond beneath the minimum fine.
Do we have other punitive tools, like removing somebody's CO, or like it feels like the biggest possible step after multiple fines? But if we get overruled by a judge on our higher fiscal penalties, is there something else that we can do?
You could say that they're prohibited from getting a permit for a period of time. You bar them from applying for a permit. And I'll give some more thoughts to that so that when we come to you with enforcement penalties, we can see what else we can add.
Can I just add, I mean, I think the penalties are interesting, but I think to Councilmember Lestar's comment, the issue, many of these folks, you're saying, I mean, the penalty isn't really addressing the issue, right? Because you don't know if somebody's necessarily lying about living in the house, about being a owner occupied or not. So you're not assigning penalties to them. If they're giving you this self-identification form, right, saying, I live here, then they're not going to the penalty stage, right? They're stopping there, and then the enforcement stops there. So it really does seem to be coming back to what is the verification. And I think potentially that is something that you could, I don't know if this is able to be done through inspection or if it's something that the host can do, because if you look at how folks write their listings online, you can very obviously often tell if they're living in the home or not, right? Because that's like, it's shared on the space, right? Like this is a shared space, you have your separate entrance, XYZ. So I wonder if it is a combination of inspections and working with the host entities to figure out like, are folks actually living in the home when they say they are? Because that seems to be the real issue.
I think the only nit I would say there is that a listing that is owner occupied may not say it's a shared space because the owner is also on vacation that week. So you have, they're leaving, and so you have the whole house, so it's not a shared space.
Yeah, I don't think it's uniform. I mean, but I don't think it applies every time, but even if the owner sometimes is on site, that's usually obvious in the posting. I mean, this might be a good thing to talk to some of the Airbnb operators in the city who we know are permitted and are doing it correctly. It might be a good opportunity to speak with them to kind of get their input as users of this system of like what those tells might be to identify if somebody's not actually owner occupied in the
Although
unit.
the people who are doing this legally and permitted aren't experts necessarily in what people are doing, you know, against the permitting process. And I think we're talking about there's two separate violations that we're talking about. One is operating an STR without a permit, and the other is not being an owner. And I think those are we might have two separate enforcement mechanisms for those two separate problems. And I would like to see, maybe there is more that we could do to get people's, in order to swim at the Beacon Pool and show residency, I have to show a utility bill. Like maybe something, a little bit more than what it takes to show residency for a small thing like that. The idea of getting something notarized and actually going in front of a person saying, I certify that I am the occupant here, or maybe getting, an additional form of ID might be a solution just to, at the base permitting level, to make sure that we are confirming. I think that is vitally important that that STRs are run by somebody who actually lives in them.
How often do we ask somebody to certify residency? Is it a one-time thing? Is it every time the permit happens?
It would be at renewal, yeah.
Okay.
So it would be every 2 years. The permits are good for 2 years.
So I don't think our issue is ownership. Ownership is easy to demonstrate. I think the issue is occupancy. Of the various indicia, the one that seems to me clear that tends to only happen once is voter registration. I suppose someone could register in multiple places in multiple states, but that actually would be pretty easy to figure out. Is there any reason we couldn't use that? Because, I mean, when I see people who come here and speak and talk about, renting their home, it's clear to me that they're owner occupied because they're registered to vote here. I see them vote, right? That strikes me as one of the easier ones.
Yeah, we can. The application gives the building department and building inspector the ability to modify the application, and we could absolutely add that in as one. Like I said, I would like to remove the word shall for the star exemption.
Yeah,
I think,
that doesn't work.
In one breath, make it a little easier to obtain by removing that one, but in the next breath, make it more, stay stringent for proof of occupancy.
I think the star one is a good one in New York State as long as you qualify for the exemption. The issue is if you do not, right? Because New York State will monitor and only give it once.
Yeah.
Right?
Or if
And
you're a
that's
tenant, if you're renting an apartment, you can still have an STR, but you're not going to the landlord's not going to give you his star exemption.
Yeah. And, you know, I recognize someone could own the house, rent it to a buddy who lives in, you know, North Carolina, heaven forbid that that would ever occur, and then claim that the renter is whatever. We're not going to catch them all. Right?
No.
But I'm perfectly fine if we find something like voter registration or STAR or a combination of those as a way of establishing occupancy, as
That's fine.
primary occupancy.
I think what we might want to avoid is somebody who flips a house with just the intention of never living there, or like extenuating circumstances happen later. That's not so much my concern as an LLC owning this, or a person who just wants the STR and doesn't want to have anything to do with living in Beacon.
I have to say, I have some slight discomfort with something. I have a slight discomfort with something that provides identifying information like party, because I think that somebody could argue that you didn't like my political party and now you've denied my permit. So I think we just want to use caution in the data that we're asking for, how that information is received and stored. It's one thing to show it and then, you know, like, yes, I saw it, I checked the box, Brian saw it, we're not going to keep a copy of your birth certificate here.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like, I'm not saying it goes that far, but I just want us to keep in mind that what we are asking of people should be something that is not potentially private.
Yeah,
Fair.
no, very,
Fair.
yes, I don't disagree with that.
Fair. I think you could establish a procedure that just says the building department contacts the Board of Elections, confirms registration without anything else, right? Some way that, because you raise a fair point, right?
Yeah, no, you know, and I don't know if it, again, it's not, I'm not going to say it's as simple as if they could, you know, white it out or something like, I don't know.
Yeah, like you
I am
could
registered,
submit
but I
it
don't have a
without certain
voter registration
information.
card. I don't know what it looks like.
I know, I don't know where mine is either.
Yeah. You know, so that could be a way, you know, maybe we could leave it as an option, you know, not, I don't want to mandate, like that's, like right now it says shall. You know, I would like to get away from that and give them more options also. And one of them could just be, it doesn't have to be your voter registration, but if that's what you choose to do, and you can white out
Yeah.
whatever
Okay,
party
so-
you're at, it doesn't affect.
Without wishing to cut off conversation, are we okay to allow the attorney to come back with something in the next couple of meetings?
Do you want to discuss the 100-day?
Yeah, I have a couple other things.
I thought we agreed, okay, sorry, but I thought we agreed we wanted to pull that, right? Or that we wanted to stop, that was a troublesome measurement.
The 100-day.
Yeah.
It's hard right at this minute. We don't have a way of verifying 100 days without requiring the applicant or the owner, or I think it actually says the tenant, providing an affidavit of how many days they stayed there. And trying to find a tenant, we might as well not. That's unfortunate.
What was the original justification for the 100 days?
It was more about it was trying to combat that issue of, I bought this house to flip it and not ever live here. So that, partnered with the owner occupation, was meant to kind of keep it a community feeling. The other thing was that, you know, look, I live next to a short-term rental, so whatever, it doesn't bother me. But there are complaints that people have about, like, oh, I don't know who's next door. And so trying to make sure that it wasn't like a revolving door of people for 365 days a year was the other aspect of that.
The 100-day, I believe, does only pertain to entire dwelling units, not like a room.
Okay.
If you were renting a room, I believe that's how it's worded. Looking through it, it seems like, and I don't have numbers, but just scanning through Granicus, it seems like most of them are full houses, though. I'm sure there are, you know, some say apartments and single rooms, but a lot of them look like they're entire homes, or, you know, like converted garages, a cottage. That's absolutely the one that we're going to see. Our first enforcement is one where they built it as an accessory dwelling unit, and it's now on STR. So we're doing twofold. We're going, because it was an ADU and you're illegally renting it as an STR. So
So here's my primary concern with the 100 days. If we say, let's say everybody's actually compliant with this in a perfect world, that means we are only meeting the demand for short-term rentals for that 100 days for that property. That means we need more short-term rentals to meet that demand. If we open it up to 300 days, we might need less short-term rentals, and we might actually end up with less housing coming off the housing market to meet that, if we were to open that up.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
And also,
I guess.
per the chart, most of the municipalities in Dutchess don't have that kind of limitation for 100 days. I feel like just because something's difficult to enforce doesn't mean that you don't have the rule there, but it doesn't seem to be, that specifically the 100 days doesn't seem to be getting us exactly where we want to be.
Oh, I agree. I was here the first time, and I don't
Yeah.
don't think that was the right answer either.
Yeah.
So.
Back to Lee's point, is anybody going to defend the 100-day provision, or are we all?
I'm not.
No.
Okay.
So Sergey had passed along his comments. He didn't specifically weigh in one way or another that I can tell. He had very lengthy remarks, but he did suggest a way of potentially monitoring the stay days, which is looking at the sales reports from the third-party booking services for the filing period or accounting ledgers. It sounds to me like that's a pretty, that's adding more steps to enforcement.
Sounds like you need to create another position to be paid to do that.
That's more like almost like auditing their records. So I'm just passing it along because if he were here, I'm sure that he would say that. And just for the record, Nick, I will pass along Councilmember Krasikov's full remarks to you so you have that handy when you're looking at doing edits.
So I think I heard, in terms of changes, the increase of the fine, the increase of a more certain requirement regarding occupancy, and if we are comfortable with that, removing the 100-day requirement. Does that sound about right?
I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound, I mean, that.
Because a lot of the 100 days is about occupancy, right?
Yeah.
And if we can get more certain about it, do we care? That's sort of Zach's comment.
Yeah, I know the portal that we have doesn't have any, sales receipts or anything like that, like he was saying. The director of finance might, if they collect tax, I don't know where that, but we don't see anything like that. It literally it'll be 3 documented stays in August, 2 documented stays in July, and so on and so on. And that's the only information that we can see from Granicus's portal. Then again, it's leading us up to, well, what is the 7 documented stays? That we don't know. And
All right, so those are the 3 that I'm hearing. We're going to see them all anyway because they're going to come back with a proposed legislation. Okay for now?
Yeah, I just have 2 things to say, and Brian, one to you is that I think you kind of just stated your own starting point when it comes to some type of enforcement, when you were stating that some of these houses are listed as full homes being rented. If they're being fully home rented, and like she was stating that if they're not saying they're home, they're not occupied. How are you renting out your whole house and you're not there?
we're using that.
Okay, great. And number 2, Nick, I would just, and somewhere in that language, I would also like to see, or we can bring it back to discussion, that these homes should be owned for at least 5 years before they're being rented out. I would like that to be put into these applications, not people coming into Beacon and buying homes and flipping them to STRs. You need to be living in Beacon for at least 5 to 10 years before you're creating STRs and making incomes within our community. That is something that I would really like to see.
So I'm not in agreement with that.
I am.
I got people who, come here and the only way they're going to be able to afford it is to be able to, rent out pieces of it. I don't see there being a problem with that. But again, what I would suggest is let's save the discussion for an actual draft, and we can go through that with the attorney when it comes up. Is that okay, everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
So the one other thing we talked about last time was, just to get it off the table, the lottery system. I feel like that felt like excess and not necessary, but I just wanted to make sure that we brought it up to say that, kind of like the 100 days, are we all?
I feel like it's unnecessary at this point based on, we're talking about less than 100. Even with the ones that are, we're generally talking about maybe 50.
Yes.
If the ones pending come into compliance. So I just don't feel like, if we were talking about huge numbers, sure, but we're not. I don't think it's necessary to go that route at this point.
I agree, and it would be helpful to have an annual report to see how these numbers change over time. But
Yeah, if it becomes, really
else.
big, then sure, but it's just not.
Especially with all the new people coming in and buying them up just to turn them to STRs.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Great, we'll prepare that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
I
Nick.
appreciate all the conversation, but I'm just trying to coax this into the next one too, because it's going to take a while.
Good.
But can we send our building inspector home?
Yes.
You're welcome to stay,
Good
Brian. We
night.
have plenty of more entertaining topics up.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Can I chime in on 2 items?
But our
Sorry.
planner isn't going anywhere. Oh, I'm sorry. Paloma, do you need
Brian still, Paloma?
I don't need Brian. I just wanted to affirm that I am still interested in if Granicus can provide us with more information about how many days these rentals are being used. I think that's useful data, but I ultimately agree with taking out the 100-day exemption anyway. And I wanted to affirm Listar's interest in understanding if it's possible to require owner occupancy for multiple years before allowing them to be rented as STRs.
Okay, so you've got a question, Brian, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up all those issues the next time when we have legislation.
Yep, and we'll look into that issue.
If we could
Thank
get
you.
how many days out of Granicus.
Yes.
Or just if there's additional data that we're not leveraging that's available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Nick, did you say something?
I was just saying with respect to Paloma's and Lustar's comment, we'll certainly look into whether the city has the ability to impose such a requirement that there is a waiting period before you could apply for an STR permit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a powers question, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee and zoning that comes from it. Natalie, you're going to lead us through that. And I thank you for being here. And thank you for still being here.
No,
We'll
that
get
was,
there.
I mean, short-term rentals are obviously, every community is struggling with it, so
Yeah.
it's layered and nuanced, so I appreciated hearing the conversation. So yes, well, I'll start, as I normally do, kind of just walking the council through the packet of materials that were posted. This is we've talked about the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee report that came out in October of 2025. So that is one of the documents. But the actual kind of concept of the legislation and zoning change, this is the first time we're having kind of the formal conversation. So everything here, just reiterating, is kind of drafts and a culmination of information for us to start that conversation. There's not actual legislation in front of the council tonight. So I'll start with my memo. The purpose of the memo and the documents in front of you is to start to talk through the proposed framework of implementing the recommendations that came out of the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee report and all the work that they did from, I believe it was November of 2023 through October of 2025. So for those on the committee who, or on the council who weren't necessarily here in 2023 or 2024, the committee was officially formed in November of 2023 by Mayor Kiraku at that time. I think we didn't get started until spring of 2024 when the committee first started meeting. You can kind of see in the document that they documented who was on the committee. We were meeting quite regularly, at least once a month. They did a number of public engagement and outreach components, whether they were kind of pop-ups at festivals or we organized at Industrial Arts, a public engagement kind of forum with presentation and mapping and input. So it was a very involved and long process, and that committee gave a lot of hours and a lot of time to that work. So as much as possible, I tried to bring that report forward and document how their recommendations were kind of conveyed into the concepts that you're seeing in front of you. So one of the things that comes out in the report and in my memo, just touching on consistency with the comprehensive plan. So a number of the recommendations that you'll see, I think, have to do with streetscape improvements, kind of aesthetic improvements, branding, or kind of making a sense of place on Fishkill Avenue. And I think those are all very much in line with the comprehensive plan. When you read through the comprehensive plan, Fishkill Avenue It doesn't come up, it wasn't a huge focus of the 2017 comprehensive plan, but there is a number of recommendations in there about the corridor aesthetics, environmental stewardship, industrial preservation, and aspects like that, where the recommendations from the committee maybe go further than what was stated in the comprehensive plan is talking about higher density mixed-use development along this corridor. The report talks about focusing, or the comprehensive plan talks about focusing density in retail specifically on Main Street. And I think this council has talked a lot about the purpose of that within the comprehensive plan, right? Is to not, you have along Main Street with a lot of small businesses on it, and trying to keep that concentrated there and not pull the attention away from that Main Street to allow it to be as successful as it has been over the past years. So I think that is memorialized in the comprehensive plan, and the committee did acknowledge that this movement of thinking about higher density, mixed use, and multifamily residential in this neighborhood isn't in direct alignment with the comprehensive plan. So there would need to be a potential amendment or kind of further elaboration of language within the comprehensive plan to support these changes. And I think something the committee talked about a lot that comes up in the report is creating a mixed-use district that does not compete with Main Street, creating a mixed-use district that kind of serves residents in terms of the daily, normal commercial uses that you need as a resident in the city of Beacon, while also allowing some of that retail, restaurant, and those aspects that you see on Main Street, but really highlighting it as like a functioning commercial mixed-use district for residents to be able to go to and get their daily needs, whether that be grocery stores or shops for home goods, things like that you're going to need for your day-to-day life. So that's covered in the comprehensive plan. So then I'll just kind of go through the recommendations that I pulled from the report that you're seeing in the draft legislation and the draft documents in front of you, and then we can talk through those in more detail. So one was establishing a new Fishkill Avenue zoning district. The committee kind of went both ways with this, that you could establish a new district here, which was the recommendation of the former planner of the city of Beacon, or because a lot of the area that they focus on for the mixed use district is the GB, you could focus on changing the regulations in the GB district. The choice that we went, and what you're seeing in front of you, is actually the creation of a Fishkill, of a new district, and the name is up for discussion. But the mixed-use district that the committee outlined kind of spread beyond and started to connect some. There was light industrial, heavy industrial. There's kind of these mix of zoning districts in the area that they saw, so it wasn't all GB. So and also there's a number of other GB districts in City of Beacon that might not be appropriate for the same changes being discussed here. So ultimately, the route that is in front of you for discussion tonight is creating its own district. Whether that be Fishkill Avenue District or a gateway or some other name that this council decides is more appropriate. That's one of the documents included in your packet is the map. And this was one that was originally created by the former planner, and I've taken it and kind of expanded it to match the Fishkill Avenue Committee's mixed-use district that they kind of showed. So that was the first step that was taken.
Natalie, might I just ask on behalf of Councilmember Krasikov why the Groveville parcels weren't included in that area mapped?
So if you go to Appendix A in the report, the Groveville district is they focused on that. The committee kind of saw that as a different, yes, there are zoning changes appropriate for that, but they saw the Groveville area as a little bit more of kind of like a planned development that had to happen there because of those sites, because of the existing structures, historic structures and things there, that was going to be a little bit more of a strategic approach than just changing it into this new zoning district. So there's a section in the report that definitely talks about, can we do infill development there? Can you do additional kind of multifamily or mixed use there? But that was separated out of the mixed use corridor that we're talking about that kind of really fronts along Fishkill Avenue.
Thank you.
Yeah. Establishing Fishkill as a mixed-use corridor that complements Main Street. So again, kind of looking at the uses that are permitted there and making sure that they're providing for kind of daily needs of residences, and not necessarily, I think one of the things that I hear from business owners on Main Street is that you can sometimes get limited by the footprint, by the floor plan that you're allowed, or the amount of space that you're allowed on a Main Street kind of commercials, whether it's a few thousand square feet, right? That stops some of these larger footprint aspects like grocery stores or other uses like that that could serve a neighborhood use. So they saw Fishkill Avenue as an opportunity where you do have a lot of open space from the former auto dealerships and things like that, right? Where larger floor plates could be created, and that shouldn't be prohibited in this area. Encouraging additional housing, obviously was a focus, and we'll talk through that when we get to the use table and the density requirements. And then establishing form-based development design standards, right? So right now, general GB, HI, LI, all the zoning districts in this area, you have a use table, you have a dimensional table, and those are what regulates. So the Fishkill Avenue Committee saw this district going closer to some of the form-based districts like the Central Main Street District or the Fishkill Creek Development District or the Linkage District, where in allowing for maybe more infill or higher density development, you also have to regulate the form of those buildings more strategically and the design of those buildings through design regulations. So that's a concept that is incorporated into this proposal. There was a lot of discussion about allowing this to be kind of an employment corridor if possible, so larger kind of potential office spaces and allowing those uses, or light industrial uses that may be kind of a nod to the existing and former kind of production, manufacturing uses along this corridor, and then updating the dimensional regulations. So the memo goes through that. And we'll go through those specifically as we go through these documents. I wanted to point out there are two other documents that are attached. There is the full Concepts Committee report, which this council has seen before. And the main attachment to that was the land use map that the proposed land use map that the committee came up with. We also broke that out into a little bit more of a table. This was one of our last discussions of the report kind of breaks up recommendations first through districts, through components, right? They look at the mixed-use district, and they look at the Groveville district, and they look at the industrial area, and then they have different components like environment, housing, things like that. The way we broke this up is kind of things that would fall to the council for legislative decisions, and then things that maybe fall to the administration for enforcement or implementation of improvements. So we try to just break it up in another way for the council to be able to kind of digest. And then there's also some in here about building department actions in terms of enforcement of maintenance issues, as well as the planning board in terms of how they're viewing applications as they go through. So there's the full report, and then there's kind of a summary table, I would say, of the recommendations. So from that, we can jump into, I would say let's start with the use table. So because we are creating a new district here, you'll see that there's a new column created currently with the FA short abbreviation for Fishkill Avenue District. And a lot of these documents, I will say, were originally created. There was a version of these in 2023 that I think did come before the council prior to the creation of the committee. So I will say that those were kind of started, and then I took the committee's recommendations to update these. So you can go through the FA kind of column. In terms of housing, right, I did talk about creation of housing was one of the goals of the committee. Permitted is kind of one family attached, so this would be kind of townhouse style housing, and then also permitted is multifamily as well as artist live workspaces. So the reason that one family and two family aren't permitted is that because this is a kind of an area for higher density, while those are kind of the uses on the outskirts of the district, that those right up against Fishkill Avenue should be kind of more of the higher density. There's a number of retail and office uses permitted there. I will say that one of the uses that is prohibited is that we got to, then this was previously discussed about this district, is drive-through facilities. I think that's in the accessory table. That was a specific recommendation of this committee and something that the council took on earlier. But besides that, you'll see a wide range of uses are permitted here, and some that may be needed a little bit more review were kind of the auto-oriented uses. Those have been added as special permitted uses, so still permitted in the district, but with an additional layer of kind of oversight by the planning board to determine how they would fit into this more walkable mixed-use district. Any questions on use table before we would? I will say the one thing that we've tried to kind of balance here, I think, is a desire to make this district distinct from Main Street, but without getting into a super Euclidean kind of use-focused prohibition, right? So the city as a whole has been trying to move a little bit more towards allowing form and design to govern what a district looks like, rather than this use is permitted, this use is not permitted. So we use the table, obviously, that the rest of the districts use, but rather than being super prohibitive on uses, you'll see when we get to the design regulations that there's going to be aspects that kind of encourage a better street wall or development that is focused, and whether that use can fit within that design, I think, will be determined by the property owner. Jumping
Natalie,
to...
I have a bit of a side quest, which is in regards to the Artist Live workspace use. My recollection is the last time we spoke about this use was in regards to 1 East Main Street, which was supposed to be Artist Live workspace, but was not enforced as such. And we started a discussion at that time about whether that type of workspace was enforceable. And before we make, additional decisions about where we allow it, I'd like to at some point have a discussion about that use type.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I can't remember the particulars of what that issue was, but I think that's something we can definitely explore, whether that was enforcement or use or design or what it was, but noted.
Yeah, but I think what you're moving toward is in our modern zones, we use form-based zoning to talk about what the exterior looks like, like how we want historic on Main Street or what other things we want, and what's inside becomes, we're less prescriptive.
Yes.
Right, and I think that's the right direction. I don't know if we can go over all at once, but I think that is appropriate. As to how we would make sure that Main Street uses don't end up there, I don't think we have the ability to control that. I do want Main Street to be protected, our absolute first one. Those of us that have been here long enough to remember when Main Street was boarded up, we don't want that again. But I don't know how we do that cleanly, but I think we in part let the market do it, right? I mean, if Main Street property is expensive, then they go over to 52, which is probably going to be less expensive, right? But we'll see.
Well, I think one thing that the committee talked a lot about that did make it into these regulations too is not mandating ground floor commercial. Right, so still mandating how the ground floor of a building is designed in terms of transparency and entrances and whether the communal space is there, but not necessarily demanding that each building have ground floor commercial like your Main Street does, right, which will allow for a greater production of housing without necessarily mandating that you have these commercial spaces that then need to be filled, that then creates competition with your Main Street.
Well, no, that's absolutely right, because if you wanted to make it different from Main Street, you might limit how much commercial is on the ground floor. I'm not suggesting we do that, but that would be one approach, because it would change it from being mostly residential with some shops that make sense with residential or restaurants or whatever.
Yeah, I think you'd want to do that without, again, getting into conflict with limiting the floor plate for kind of larger uses that aren't currently able to locate on Main Street. So there's the balance there. So I think what's here, and it's worth discussing though right now, is not mandating that the ground floor be commercial and instead letting kind of the market dictate that.
Mayor, I was asked by someone online to move your microphone a little closer to your mouth.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
So we'll just run through the dimensional table real quick. So the FA district, kind of similar to CMS and Linkage district, does not have the minimum area requirement or per unit. I will discuss too, I think there was a comment earlier about it not having a requirement for a depth, right? And you see this is something that was done in the Fishkill Creek Development District as well, where there is not a minimum depth of a lot. So I think it was correctly stated that many of these lots and some portions of these lots are shallow along, because they abut the creek on one side and they abut other districts. So mandating 100-foot depth where there's no way that a lot will have 100-foot depth is just going to require that parcel to have to go to the ZBA. So I think something else that was encouraged here to protect residential uses abutting these districts is the rear yard setback requirement rather than the depth, right? So it's not, if you have a 100-foot depth but you don't have a good setback, rear setback, the building could be built out the whole way to the back of that, right? So rather than demanding lot dimensions that do not exist currently, those regulations were removed, and instead what you'll see is for the rear yard setbacks, right now there's a range, which is again is a more form-based move, where you allow it to be 20 to 25 feet, and then what is stated in the caveat is that that greater distance is required where you abut a residential property, right? So if you're abutting a residential district, you were required to meet the higher, the larger setback requirement, and that allows for the greater space between commercial uses and residential uses rather than lot depth or width.
So for instance, if you're on the southeast side of Fishkill Avenue where you back up to the creek or the tracks,
yeah,
there isn't an issue with how far back you have to set back from.
So you could be within the range, yeah.
But if you're on the other side of the street where there's, or at least a section where there's residential,
yes,
there would be a different application.
You have to meet the 25-foot setback, rear yard setback, okay, so that there's that greater distance between the residential use. Similarly, I think one of the changes was to match Fishkill, to match the CMS district and others where there's a range for your front yard. So not only a minimum, many districts say you must be at least 10 feet set back from the street line. This is again a window that you must be from 0 to 10 feet. So you can be up to your property line so that you're creating kind of this active streetscape, especially if you're going to have a commercial use or something like that. But you also can't be set so far back and put parking in front of the use so that, you know, you're not getting that engagement of windows or building kind of up to the street. So you're allowed to be, again, there's a range there of 0 to 10 feet for the front yard. And then also for the side yard, because since we are allowing townhouses, there can be structures that will be individual units that could be 0, right? They would have a shared kind of party wall, so that is permitted. Per the recommendation of the Fishkill, of the committee, the heights were increased to 4 stories. That was recommended, and that's what's reflected here, is 4 stories and 48 feet. So that matches where 4 stories is elsewhere permitted, like the linkage district. That's the requirement there, 4 stories to 48 feet. And then there was, I think, something that can be added to this regulations. There was a few view sheds identified by the committee worth protecting, views of Mount Beacon, and it was in those areas that they recommended considering whether this height would be appropriate or whether the planning board would be allowed to, based on renderings or visuals, require step backs of the 4-story or potentially preclude them if it's in the way of one of these, the 3 view sheds that they identified. And those are really down towards the end, towards Groveville and those aspects where you get kind of that really straight, clear view of Mount Beacon. And then from that, I think I would just jump into the bulk of it, and this is where I think a lot of obviously the rubber meets the road in these kind of form-based districts is the design regulations, right? Or the district regulations, which beyond just regulating use and the footprint or the form, they get a little bit more into the design of the building. So this talks, I don't know if we wanted to go through these one by one right now or kind of just leave them open. I'm getting a no on that, so we won't. But I think many of these regulations will be familiar to the council. These are pulled from other zoning districts, your other form-based districts, so it shouldn't be anything too new, except I think there will be, I think one of the big things talked a lot about by the committee is having parking located on the side or behind. And so this gets back to my comment about auto-oriented uses. I think there was a lot of discussion about whether they should be prohibited or allowed to remain. So I think one of the compromises there is the use can remain, but the action of having kind of the whole front aspect of this lot covered in cars and a building kind of set way back behind it, the new regulations kind of flip that, right? So the building should be in front of the parking and parking should be kind of behind or to the side of the building. And then also a lot of regulations in here about like allowing streetscape improvements, street trees planted every few feet at the discretion of the planning board, and kind of improvements of that front portion of the lot.
I think I know the answer to this, but just double checking. I'm just remembering some of the challenges that we've had or complaints in the past, and one of them was around like the businesses having their lights way too bright. So that would be regulated by our lighting regulations. We wouldn't have to put things like that into this district. Would the same be true of view sheds also? Would we add the view sheds in? Do we have a view shed? Yeah, we would add the view sheds into our existing view shed. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, so the lighting regulations that would govern this district are the same ones that govern all the others. And I think that does, I mean, I think there has been a desire, especially now that we have a lighting expert on the planning board, to maybe beef those up a little bit, because we have good ones in there that is beyond what some communities have in terms of regulating light temperature of LEDs and heights and things like that. I think enforcement of that is one issue, and then I think a little bit broader. So that's a kind of this would just, I think where it does talk about lighting, it sends you back to that larger section within the code. And I think we would do the same with the view sheds aspect as well. So that's it for now. I think I just wanted to present the concept. I know the council has been kind of asked, I know this Fishkill Creek Committee, this report was finished last year, so I know it was in the report of having this as a 2026, 2027 action, so we wanted to make sure this got to the council to start this discussion this year. But again, this is first viewing, so just kind of general thoughts and comments, happy to take those and then figure out a way to weave those into the formal draft regulations.
Natalie, one other item I recall from the report was a recommendation to have I believe it was an engineering study to understand where exactly the public right-of-way was for the streets. We recognize that there's some, maybe not disputed property lines, but some buildings that are technically in the public right-of-way that were built 50 years ago. But to have a clear understanding of the legal width of the street so that we can have a more clear understanding of what the traffic patterns might be able to be on those streets.
Yeah, and I guess to that too, Paloma, thanks for mentioning that. It was just kind of an encroachment also that could prevent like an even sidewalk from being built. If I'm remembering the conversation, there were a lot of issues with it, but is that something that can be addressed here or is addressed here?
I don't think that would necessarily be through zoning, right? Zoning is you develop XYZ inside of your parcel line. So I think what the discussion was is throughout the corridor, the range of the right-of-way varies.
Yeah.
It's not a consistent width. And in some cases, there may be one building that is over a property line, but I don't think it's the building. I think it's the accessory uses where over time, where that property line actually lies has been lost because so much of the side of the road was not occupied, and that accessory uses like storage of vehicles or things like that have expanded beyond folks' property. So I don't know if that's something necessarily that zoning can, or because zoning only regulates what's within your personal property, right? I think the one thing that came up through the committee that maybe can make it into the regulations a little bit is because of that varying width, the planning board has been struggling when when they try and impose maybe adding a sidewalk on, in front of your property or adding landscaping in front of your property, trying to assist the city in moving forward in terms of like a consistent sidewalk with landscaping is hard to do from the site plan review process or that stage. So what we saw on one parcel that came through was kind of a land banking of the front. It was a sidewalk bank. I don't know, Taylor's not here. He would have loved to talk about this. But there was discussion about where the sidewalk or landscaping in the front of the parcel should go. So it was kind of land bank to be determined once the city had designs for Fishkill Avenue. Because, so there is a little bit, it's just not consistent. I don't think it's, anybody to survey their property would know exactly where their property lines are. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's the creep over the property lines, and then just there's not a consistent width throughout. So where do you put a sidewalk when there's not a consistent, how do you do that comprehensively, you know?
Is that something we need to include in our design standards? Because I think there was a desire to make sure that both sides of Fishkill Avenue had sidewalk, especially if we're going to have this desire for a more walkable, you know, property lines closer to Fishkill Avenue. Is that something that is already in here, or would we need to put that in here to ensure that there is the opportunity for that?
I mean, I think it's something I would want to discuss with the city. I think it's best practice to have your public sidewalks be public and not crossing onto private properties. I think you can have an expansion of a public sidewalk, and you can have properties maybe making that wider in some portions, especially if they want to do, say you were to have a restaurant and you wanted to do like a front yard kind of seating or something. It makes sense for them to be expanding it, but I think best practice for a municipality would not be relying on private properties to build public sidewalks.
Right, I would agree, and to the extent the land is not there, the city has the power of eminent domain to do small takings to obtain that land so you could create public sidewalks. We could also reach out to DOT and see what mapping they have of the Fishkill Avenue corridor with respect to where the right-of-way line is.
Yeah, my question isn't necessarily like who should build the sidewalk, but do we need something in here that ensures we can build a sidewalk that is not like this the whole way down?
Yes, I'm hearing, wouldn't we put in the design standards that there should be a sidewalk, and if there is more public way there could be more, but at least that there would be a sidewalk to the extent that the right-of-way permits, or something like that in our design standards.
I guess that you mix terms there, so the right-of-way, so would you want the sidewalk in the public right-of-way, not on the private properties, right? Because zoning controls what is developed on private property.
Oh, I see what you're trying to say.
Whereas, again, you would want your sidewalk, so I think there's something to work through there, and I think we can discuss in terms of whether you can have private property owners be contributing towards the future build-out of that in some way.
If we were doing a pedestrian plan separate from our zoning, and we said this street was identified as one that should have sidewalks on both sides, and in that plan it says here is the width of the public right-of-way on this side, we could get at it that way.
Yes, and I believe my request here is that in addition to the zoning regulations we're looking at, that as a council we are looking at the public right-of-way and what access we want to give in terms of cars, pedestrians, bicycles, and any other transportation.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think these are two pieces, but they go along in tandem. I think we have some language that we could add, because I think this exists in like the linkage district, about allowing the planning board to seek improvements, like there's a word to make sure that they're to the right scale of the development, right? You can't have like a change of use of someone like building out your full sidewalk. But I think there's language in the linkage district about allowing the planning board to look at the provision of improvements within the public right-of-way, whether that be street trees and aspects like that. So I can look into that to see if there's something that can support that within the zoning as well. But then it is also, I think, it's like a more administration kind of improvement within the, or pedestrian improvement plan or whatever.
I trust you understand what we're going for, so.
Yeah.
I'll let you think about it.
Yeah.
But like the greenway, right? If we put it in, not as zoning under greenway, but we say with respect to sidewalks, we're expecting to see a sidewalk here in the public right-of-way.
Yeah.
When a parcel that is adjacent to that section of the right-of-way goes to develop, we could ask or require that developer to take care of it, or we could do it at that time.
Yeah. So I think the bigger thing is having a comprehensive vision of what that looks like there, so that the planning board can then support that with their site plan review of individual parcels. Right? And that's what happened with the Greenway, right? There was a concept of where this should go and how it should connect, and then the planning board was able to kind of support that policy through individual site plan review.
Yep. Cool. Other stuff we want to cover tonight on this? You want us to like have homework and go read it in detail and?
Yeah, I would say review it if there's any aspect that's not not clear to you or something that you're not seeing in there, or how is this zoning, like, this is my goal of what I want to be achieved here, and how is that being achieved? I think we can then think about tools to go that.
And you're only putting up the portion of Fishkill Avenue that would be in this unique district, as opposed to the industrial piece or the Groveville piece, which are coming later.
Correct.
All right, so you want to cover that first.
Yes, we're focused on the mixed-use district component first.
So did you just assign us homework?
Yeah.
Read it and come back
Read.
and tell us.
read these materials. Please.
I have like a non-zoning question, just getting back to, did the committee talk about the name? I know we talked a little bit about the name. I think people are going to call things what they call things, but it is a good point that there are a lot of things called Fishkill, including like our neighbors. And I'm wondering if this might be an opportunity to look at what it was prehistorically called, or maybe if we can talk to like the Historical Society, if there's another kind of industry or historical thing that we might want to honor. I would definitely shy away from not naming it after any person or anything, but like if there's, or maybe even just the Gateway District, but something, I was curious if anything came up, because people are probably just going to call it what they're going to call it, but.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is an opportunity to name it. I think the committee did talk a lot about this being kind of a gateway to Beacon, right? One that maybe hasn't had all the attention as other areas in which you enter the city. So that was why I just thought of the term gateway. But I think we can dig a little bit through the history here to see what might make sense. I can come back with some suggestions. But I think that's also good input if, as you're going through this or thinking through this area, if there's a zoning appropriate, keep it short. Keep it short.
And also something that hasn't been used elsewhere.
Yeah. But you'll see a lot of, there's a lot of communities, like Central Main Street is probably the one, you'll see communities that create zoning districts based on like an area. So I think that's definitely appropriate. It doesn't have to be high industrial, light industrial, like that kind of, speaking to the uses within it. It can be, but I agree. I think Fishkill Avenue and Fishkill Creek development being two neighboring districts.
If we call it the small office building corridor, then it has to become that, and that's how we get around that.
Yeah.
So one kind of next step question, we're talking a lot about what changes may come to the district in terms of zoning. I believe there was recommended that a limited amendment to the comprehensive plan may be warranted from that. Councilmember Krasikova just asked as like kind of just setting the stage, why would we do that now as opposed to when we're doing the comp plan next year? And I think the answer is probably to set up for a successful comp plan next year, but you might be able to speak more on that than I can.
Yeah, and I think, I see this as a minor tweak to the comprehensive plan, right? Because like I said, the comprehensive plan is largely silent on the Fishkill Avenue corridor. And I think the city made a decision to kind of put a little bit more focus on that with the creation of the committee and the thought process here. So, I think that with a minor amendment of speaking to the intent of the comprehensive plan, because the intent of the comprehensive plan is let Main Street be Main Street and try to avoid having competition to that. Mm-hmm. I think you could expand on that through a minor amendment to speaking, while this is in line with a comprehensive plan because we are creating a district that is not in competition but complements Main Street and also provides services for residents that maybe aren't met by the Main Street businesses, right? So I think you're expanding and giving nuance to the comprehensive plan rather than changing anything. And I feel like a change would be something that you would want to wait for a larger kind of process. This also did go through a public process with a lot of public engagement and stuff. So it was a mini kind of comprehensive plan amendment process in itself. But again, I think it's adding detail
clarifying
to one where there's not a lot of detail in the comprehensive plan on this. That would be my position on it.
And Sergey, when you're watching this later, I know that you have about 10 other detailed questions. I will forward those over to Natalie to take a look at. We can respond digitally to those, and then to the extent they require further discussion, we'll bring those to the next workshop.
Yeah. But I guess any other general thoughts? I know this was a priority for the council, so I want to make sure that we were kind of just, I guess that's the other reason for not waiting for the full comprehensive plan, which we did also submit that grant at the end of July, that grant application.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there was any other comments or questions. I know this has been a
Not
long
yet.
night already.
I think we have plenty of time to talk about this.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
We'll cover these first, and then you think we'll pick up Groveville and the industrial part after that?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I think this is the bigger piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need me for anything else, or is that's it for me on the agenda?
Feel free to
Can we
run.
excuse the planner?
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Safe travels home.
Thank you for the very thorough walkthrough.
Okay, so I think we covered Edgewater earlier, and then we've got just two more items. They're both pretty quick.
Lee,
I think, Mayor,
Oh, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
the only question on Edgewater is, did the council have any questions or comments? Otherwise, we will prepare a draft resolution for consideration at your next public hearing that would be authorizing the amendment of the special use permit to increase the number of units by 2 and the bedrooms by 9.
Nick, just to clarify, you said the next public hearing. The public hearing was closed, and you meant the
Sorry,
next meeting?
Council meeting, thank you.
Thanks.
I don't have any questions or concerns.
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Ben, you've got the next two. You're going to talk to us about our own workplace policy, and then also a standard workday for council members.
Yep, I'm going to put on my HR hat for just a moment. I won't hopefully keep us too much later tonight. The first of these two workshop items is the adopting a gender-based violence and workplace prevention and the workplace prevention policy. The city already has both a sexual harassment prevention policy and a workplace violence policy. New York State has a draft gender-based violence in the workplace policy that's essentially kind of an intersection of the two. Most likely, these two policies do already cover pretty much everything included in this. This is required for us to adopt in order to apply for certain grants. This has been thoroughly vetted by our legal team. Didn't see any issues. It actually even piggybacks off of the process and form of sexual harassment complaints. So really, I don't expect it will change much operationally. We already do annual trainings for all of our staff on the two existing policies, and we can probably just parlay those into making sure that everyone's trained on this adequately as well later this year.
Yeah, I'll just say, aside from it being a requirement, I think it's appropriate for the city to have a policy like this. It's an important stopgap between those two. I guess this is more of a question maybe to give back to Sarah, is if there are other policies that are somewhat standard that the city has not yet adopted? Like, are we missing other key things like this? I can list all of my corporate training that I have to do. But, yeah, just an inquiry to Sarah, not anything super urgent, but if there's anything else that we should have on our radar to bring forward.
Yeah, we have Sarah. I'll ask her to do just an evaluation if there's other cleanup we needed to do.
Thank you.
And I'm also, I'm curious about the process of, is this done on an annual basis, and at the risk of being the kid who raises her hand and says you forgot to assign homework, I don't think we on the council have gone through this training in this capacity. So if the sexual harassment, so does it come up on an annual basis?
We do it every December.
Every December. Okay, so that
so you probably just missed it on your orientation.
Yeah.
You'll get the pleasure of being invited to it later this year.
Okay, so if we're onboarding people outside of the window, they don't get the training until they hit that part of the window?
Everyone's provided with the policies when they are onboarded.
Yes,
the actual training that will go through it in detail, which we've brought in outside trainers in the past to lead, that is an annual training that we do.
Okay, so because it goes for everyone who's elected officials and everyone who works with everyone.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Standard workday.
We've done this once before. I don't necessarily need to go through this in a lot more detail, but essentially for those council members that opt into reporting this resolution establishes their hours that they're meeting per month. And it is a requirement for us to pass this resolution. We did it earlier this year for 2 other council members. And Councilmember Krasikov is also interested in reporting for this, so Sarah asked me to have this on for tonight. If there's any more specific questions, I have my write-up from her from the last time we met and spoke about this earlier in the year, but I don't want to go through it if you're all comfortable with where we're at.
I trust that it's been validated the same way the other ones have.
Okay. So now let's do the 2 resolutions associated with this. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt a gender-based violence and workplace prevention policy.
Motion, second.
So that's Amber and Lestar. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Paloma.
Aye.
Thank you. And then the next one is the standard workday for elected officials. I'm looking for that motion and second to establish that.
Motion.
So that was the same, too. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And Paloma.
Paloma votes aye.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I missed the second on that. Who was the second?
I think I was.
Yeah, the same as before.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And then we need a motion to approve the minutes of August 3rd.
Motion.
And that's Carolyn, and I'll
Second.
second it. And any additions, changes, et cetera, to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of August 3rd, say aye.
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 Thank you, Paloma. All right, we're at our second opportunity for public comment. If you did not have the opportunity to speak at our first one, you may do so now. Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Hello, Rachel Rifkind. I don't know what ward I am, but I
2.
think I'm Ward 4.
2.
2, thank you. And I just want to speak about the bicycles, the e-bikes. Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the e-bikes. I mean, they're out of control. I almost got hit by 3 of them. I understand people want to ride their bicycles, right? There's that environmental factor, but there's also the other one. As I do walk the streets in my own way.
Okay.
So please take that don't be, and I've repeated myself, but please don't become New York City and make those e-bikes or whatever they're called, That's it.
Okay,
Thank
you.
Anyone else?
And also, I guess that's it.
Okay.
Good evening again. Clark Edmond, 2 Wilson Street. The Fishkill Avenue, which might be called Wolcottville on 52, has more depth and more dimension from a planning viewpoint than the narrow strip, which I happened to mention when the committee was formed. It's communication with the prison ground, and it's communication with my land on the opposite side of the Fishkill Creek for 500 feet. The idea is, should there be a Stone Street exception? My neighbors wouldn't be, extension rather, they wouldn't be very happy with that. But when you think about the bigger picture, and when you think about the Catholic Church movement on their property, when you think about what's going to happen with Texaco or what's not going to happen, these are too big of opportunities along with the prison ground. You're a city, and you have the right to adopt adjacent land upon the majority vote of the residents. The prisoners don't count. I mean, there are unique times and timing that really justify a broader community view, because it will only serve to create better traffic circulation patterns in the future. And pretending as though it's not an opportunity, pretending as though it's not something that should be done, is wrong. I'd like to also briefly address the fact that a 4-family house which I would like to build on 25 by 50 foot by 100 foot lots with adequate parking, presents an opportunity for 25 new owners, along with 25 new senior residents discounted. The encouragement of letting property owners participate in the generational wealth building that this city has on its lots has been artificially constrained by not accepting the idea of the four-family house is actually the most affordable housing opportunity in America, period, point blank, not really debatable. And of all the people who should know better is our mayor, because he's talked about his family wealth building out of a four-family house in California.
15 seconds.
I think it's time for you to put on the big boy britches and really understand the economics of the difference between making it affordable for a husband and wife, school teachers, or whatever the case, can just pop right into something like that when they can rely on 3 other rents, one of them subsidized.
Thank you. So, anyone else? And I will add, Clark is correct. I grew up in a 7 apartments on what would be a single-family lot. My family owned the 7 units, lived in one, and were able to be there renting out the other 6. So.
You said it was 4?
No, 7.
I stand corrected, sir.
It's okay, but it's the same issue, right? Not hearing anyone else with public comments?
Let me double check Zoom, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
We have no further hands raised on Zoom.
I will just announce that our next meeting is Tuesday, September 8th at 7 o'clock, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
So that was Amber and Zach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Paloma.
Aye.
Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night.
Good evening. Have a good night, Nick. Have a good night, Paloma.
Thank you. Good night.
Oh, after Labor Day?